What's up, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more video game music, and we're back with a tune from Phantasy Star II, an excellent game, which is a sequel to another excellent game, both of which on Sega systems. Phantasy Star I was on the Master System, Phantasy Star II was on the Genesis. The reason I'm over here is because I want to make sure I get this name right. I don't think this is a composer who's like particularly well known. Yeah, the composer for Phantasy Star II, it's listed as Tokuhiko Uwabo, but I imagine Uwabo is the surname, so it'd be Uwabo Tokuhiko. Either way, this game is amazing, and the first one as well. I actually played them in like reverse order because I played the second one first because I had a Genesis. Didn't have Sega Master System, which came before it, though my friend across the street did. And eventually I got this converter where you could play Sega Master System games in your Genesis. So I eventually played the original, which is fantastic as well, and it's like a really interesting game because you play like as a female protagonist. The first time I ever remember that in a role-playing game. And I know people say like, oh, but Metroid. And it's like, yeah, but Metroid, like, action-adventure game, and you didn't find out until the very end that it was actually a female. Whereas, you know, Phantasy Star 1 with a PH, yeah, you're playing as Alice like the whole time. Nevertheless, the point is, this is the sequel. Both games take place in the Andromeda Galaxy, like hundreds of years in the future. And it's sort of like, it's sci-fi but fantasy kind of mixed, especially the second game. The first game has a bit more of a traditional fantasy feel, but still, you like fly in spaceships that go to multiple different planets. So it's definitely a fusion of sci-fi and fantasy. Both games are awesome. First game, like especially the dungeon crawling was fantastic. Second game, they like lifted it to an overhead, like third-person view, even in the dungeons. But the music in both games is fantastic. So the tune that we're going to listen to in this one, it's called Secret Ways. It's used in this like mist-covered dungeon on this like really kind of secretive island that at first, you know, it's only kind of a rumor, and then you eventually get a map to find where it is. And basically, from the moment I walked into the dungeon, it's like dungeon, it's sort of like an underground tunnel system, like dungeon just as like a general video game like term for a type of play area. Nevertheless, when I walked into it, I just, again, like I sat there and just listened to the loop go around a couple times. I think the loop is about like a minute and 15 seconds, and that's about what we're going to hear here. But yeah, it's a really cool tune, and ultimately it's very atmospheric for a 16-bit video game. Shout out to the Sega Genesis. I'm not one of those people, oh, this Nintendo's better, Sega was better. I played all good video games, and I, or my brother, had like both Sega and Nintendo consoles. I had the original Nintendo, and then eventually my brother got a Super Nintendo, and then I got a Genesis, and so we basically could play all the games on both systems during both the 8 and the 16-bit era. So I don't really play favorites. Nevertheless, let's get to it. This is by Tokuhiko Uwabo, or Uwabo Tokuhiko, from Phantasy Star II, Secret Ways. Almost like, you know, what people call lo-fi hip-hop. Like, I mean, it's different. It's, you know, it's more chiptune-y, if you will, but it's melancholy, which again, you walk into this dungeon and it's full of fog, and it's just like, oh shit, what's going on here? It's like the combination of that, like, sort of like, you know, epic kind of melancholic melody with those higher pitched stabs, that bing, 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 which are now like deeper. And it'll fade now. But yeah, I really do love that, and it's one of my favorites. And again, the whole game has fantastic music, and you know, I don't want to spoil it. Wow. I don't want to spoil it just in case, because you know, there are like ROMs of this game and emulators that you can play it on for Phantasy Star II. I don't remember, is it, oh, I think it, Yeah, it definitely is. Also, if you can get a Genesis Mini, I have a Genesis and a Super Nintendo and an NES Mini out there. And yeah, on the Genesis Mini, not only is Phantasy Star 2 included, by default, but you can unlock Phantasy Star the original for Master System by, it's like you have to accomplish like a point like challenge in like one of the other games. I think it's like a helicopter game. But yeah, so you can play both Phantasy Stars if you can get your hands on a Genesis Mini. And for those two games alone, I would argue it's worth it. I think those things are like what, like around $100, something like that, or at least that's what I got it for originally. I don't know like what they might go for now, but it's definitely worth playing. And yeah, the ending is crazy. Like I remember, number one, forget the ending. Like I'll tell you something like earlier, which isn't too much of a spoiler because I think this is one of the things that people who talk about the game will remember. People make a big deal about Final Fantasy VII. I forget the name of the character, but there's a character that like is really important or whatever, and then like they die unavoidably, and you suddenly realize like, nope, there's no getting around it. This character dies. Yeah, Phantasy Star 2 went there like what, 20 years earlier, or at least like 10, 12 years earlier. There's a character who's basically the second most important character in the game, and like it's not really the main character's girlfriend. It's more like someone that like he helped take care of and whatever, but ultimately it's like one of the main characters, and then boom, dead, can't do anything about it. I remember as a kid playing the game, I was just like, wait, what? Like so there's no, I can't get around this, like it literally, that has to happen, what the fuck? So yeah, it was a crazy game. So yeah, check it out if you're interested. Like I said, the ending is a crazy twist. So let me know what you think. Let me know if there's any other video game tunes you'd like to hear me react to. Other than that, I appreciate those listening and watching. Have a good day, have a good night. I'll see you next time. Peace.